Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Logan. How are you, Logan?
Good evening, Alex. Yeah, doing well.
Looks like we've both had fresh haircuts for the episode, so it's a nice display from us. But yeah, I guess talking about the game, not a particularly fantastic display on the weekend from City. I guess the 5 wins in a row had to come to an end at some point, but a bit disappointing to only get the draw against Shrewsbury. I mean, I suppose, you were sort of pointing out in the chat, I think, on the weekend that they're a side that have been in reasonable form at home. So it was always going to be a bit of a tricky game. But were you disappointed with the result, or how did you see it?
Yeah, they were a team that was in extreme form, and they have an incredible record against, I think, particularly the top 6 when those teams travel to Shrewsbury. So I guess upon reflection, it was probably one of those games that we maybe underestimated, not because of where Shrewsbury kind of sit in the ladder and perhaps the quality that they do have, but just how tough and resilient they can be at home. So I think in the end, the draw on face value probably isn't the best result, but the fact that we had other results go our way this week, it hasn't turned out being the end of the world. And I guess in so many respects, the fact that we were able to get a point out of it and kind of, particularly when we fell behind, still kind of speaks into this momentum that we do have at the moment, that we do feel positive, and the playing group really seem to be up for the challenge. So not only are they being able to get points in the comfortable games and doing it well, but even when perhaps there's those tougher fixtures, they're able to play themselves back into the game. And so I think there was definitely some positive takeaways.
Yeah, I think definitely the fact that we were able to fight back and get the goal to equalise. I thought that first half in particular was really flat from both sides. Probably, I thought that we just, it was one of those games. In the past, it might have been the sort of game that we'd go down 1-0, like in the Ipswich game and other games that we've had in recent months. So it was promising that we were able to fight back and get the goal in the second half to secure the point. I guess in terms of contributing factors, I thought the ref was very eager to blow the whistle. There was a lot of fouls given for really soft incidents from both sides. Yellow cards brandished as well, which I thought were probably a bit excessive. And also just the dimensions of the pitch. It might have just been the iFollow stream, I'm not too sure, but it did feel like it was a very small pitch. And as a side that likes to counter-attack and break into space, it did feel like there was not many opportunities for guys like Elder or Lewis Potter to really break into space and run onto that sort of through ball from our players. So as sort of factors, it's I guess sort of making excuses, but at the same time, it's just sort of trying to dig into why we might not have performed at our best.
Yeah, again, I think New Meadow just did certainly look like a very different, fields I mentioned did seem smaller, whether that's the case or not. But I guess if you look at the trend and you look at the the way that Shrewsbury have managed those bigger teams, maybe that might play into the having that smaller pitch may suit their game plan and the way that they actually approach the bigger teams that I guess do traditionally like to beat teams on the outside with their pace and getting wingers behind and crosses into the box and just playing that kind of high pressure game. And so the fact that they were able to limit that and limit it well, maybe that is the recipe for their success against those bigger teams. So, fair play to them. I thought they weren't too bad. They probably brought us down to their level with all due respect to them, and it kind of showed. And it's one of those tough games that not too much damage was done. But, if we had got 3 points, we would be in an extremely comfortable position now, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, and look, fair play to them as well. It's always interesting. I think it was the Burton game in February where we were sort of pulling our hair out at the loss to a side in Burton's position in the league. And you look at what they've gone on to do since then. And funny enough, it was against Burton midweek where Shrewsbury were actually able to get the win. So it's always interesting putting a bit of context around a result to see the form that the side that's taken the points off us has managed to show in their next game as well. And you did mention there as well, I'll just pull up for our visual watchers, talking about the drop points from the other sides in the league, I mean, Peterborough drawing 3-3 with Rochdale, and really Rochdale could have won that game. It was only a last-minute penalty for Peterborough that got them the win in that, the point in that one. You've also got, where was it? Sunderland drawing with Lincoln, which was a big one, and Gillingham drawing with Doncaster as well. So I think it was all of the top 6. If I go to the table, I think it was all of the top 6 actually that drew on the weekend. And of course, Peterborough losing midweek to Blackpool as well. So really, in terms of results, obviously, perfect world, we get the 3 points against Shrewsbury to go even further clear at the top of the table. But the fact that now it's just Sunderland who can catch us with their games in hand, it's just about as good a result as we could have hoped for.
Absolutely, and I think even on face value, that particular result of the Posh and Rochdale, it probably doesn't capture the true story of what actually happened in that game, in the sense that Peterborough led 2-0, and when you think about the position that Rochdale are in the ladder, they're absolute cellar dwellers, and are pretty much primed for relegation or thereabouts. And so for the Posh to be leading 2-0 and to allow them back into that game and to trail, they ended up getting that point. But you can just imagine that the conversations that would be happening, and the lack of confidence or concern in the playing group, or certainly amongst their fans, is real to see. And I think it probably speaks into just how tense this run in is going to be. And regardless of what fixture you do find yourself, up against, the magnitude of those results are huge. And just because you're playing someone, who sits far lower on the league, they're going to have a huge impact on what actually happens in the promotion fight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look there, Dembele and Smodic getting goals in the first half, but then 55th, 87th and 90th minute goals for Rochdale to put them 3-2 up was pretty incredible. And a bit unfortunate for them not to hold on. And you can probably tell from the discussion around the other games, there's not a whole lot, I would say, to talk about the game against Shrewsbury. We've sort of said it all. I think it was a pretty dour game, to be honest, watching that one. Look, I'll give my 3-2-1 for the votes, but really Doherty standing out with the goal for the 3 votes was the easy one. I've given the 2 and the 1 to Coyle and Elder, but you could have thrown a hat over a couple of players who maybe would have been deserving of votes. But no real standouts in the side for me other than that Doherty goal.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I don't think that I can really argue with any of those choices. The Doherty goal was pretty spectacular, albeit somewhat of a deflection, but it looked fantastic. And I think the fact that it came in such quick fashion after we conceded was kind of, it's somewhat nerve-easing, but to get that result in a rather dire performance, as we mentioned before, it largely had a lot to do with how Shrewsbury played us. We move on, and not too many takeaways other than the fact, as I said, we dug ourselves out of a hole, and that may be the case in the next 9 games. So we may have to do that. In fact, we probably will have to do that if we are going to find ourselves finding a way back to the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'll just pull that graphic back up because, look, we'll move on and talk about the Gillingham game. I don't think there's a whole lot out. There's not a whole lot off field going on. We had a few transfer rumours last week. Nothing too much in the news this week to discuss. So really, it's a preview of that Gillingham game coming up. I think they have 2 or they have 3 wins in their last 5. I'll just have a look there. So it's 3 wins in their last 5. They're sitting there in 9th on the table. In that 5 games, I think they've taken points off Lincoln, and they've got a draw with Peterborough. I think it was, if I'm just going to scroll up here. Where was it? Gillingham. Yeah. Oh, I can't see where it is now, but I think they had a draw against Peterborough as well. So, look, they're a tricky opponent. They had the draw with Doncaster. They're a tricky opponent, one that we played on the first day of the season where we got the 2-0 win. They're definitely in a bit of form now, and they're not out of the conversation for a playoff place. So they've definitely got something to fight for. Maybe that means that they'll come at us a little bit more. We sort of talk about when we play these teams that they kind of come out of their shell and kind of go for it in the games against us. It actually gives us a bit more of an opportunity. How do you see it?
So it's a precarious one. I think if you think of where Gillingham are on the league ladder, it's like, whilst we mentioned that they're not out of the picture and they're very much a playoff contender, they have that kind of feel of Oxford United about them, where they just were sneaking along and picking up results, and all of a sudden they were a team that nobody really considered, but they found themselves in the picture. And while that's a great story for them, and they do seem to be flying to some extent, it's one loss really, would be a deflating thing for them. And whilst they're close and kind of clutching at the tails of the top six, a couple of losses and they're well and truly out of it. So it's a tough one, but momentum's a funny thing, and if they're able to continue in the form that they are, they're going to be a very tough opponent. But equally, if they were to fall a goal or two behind, I can very easily think that the mentality of the players will be that our season's over. And maybe that's a little bit hopeful, but that's certainly one of those tricky fixtures. I know what it's like when we've watched City in the past, in those, particularly in the Championship. We had many seasons under Nigel Pearson where we were kind of there or thereabouts, but we knew that getting those results, although you could go get 3 or 4 wins in a row, a loss really was deflating. So, look, they'll be tough. I think that they, as you said, they come in with a very good, positive run of form. But I still think it's a team that we have to be looking at, saying, if we're top of the tree and serious contenders for promotion, then we have to be beating these teams.
Definitely. I don't think we had any changes to the side against Shrewsbury, but would you be looking to make any changes going into this one? Again, I mean, we've had the week off, so players have that rest. There's not really a need to rotate for that reason, but perhaps for form?
Look, I think that, as you said, the rest period is something that we're not really accustomed to. I don't really see anyone, as we mentioned in the weekend result, there was nothing, about that result that really kind of put the spotlight on anyone who is starting to struggle. And I think that there's a real, a real positive formula City seem to have worked out now, and I feel like McCann himself has worked out what his best team is there or thereabouts, and the tinkering or the slight adjustments seem to be working for us. I mean, when we talk about it, we're a team that had 5 wins on the bounce and then a draw. Like, we really do. We are the form team in the division. It's hard to kind of always think of ourselves as that, particularly when we've become so accustomed to City being a stop-start team, if that's fair to say. But 5 wins and a draw is an incredibly positive run of form, and it's, I guess, it's probably a case of if it's not broken, don't fix it. And so I don't really see the reason to change too much up. Given that would be, I guess, my feeling at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I think that midfield 3 seems to be the place that we would be most likely. We sort of switch things around, or even the front 3, I suppose, as well. But I tend to think that a front 3, perhaps of White, Wilkes, and KLP is the way to go. I don't know about Magennis starting up top. I think he's good off the bench. So probably those 3 up top. And I think Doherty, Jones, and Honeyman sort of pick themselves in midfield at the moment as well. So I think, as you say, it's that sort of winning formula. There's no real need to change that too much.
In saying that, I do think the concern is that I believe Magennis and White are away on Northern Ireland.
Oh, yes. Actually, that's a good point. Yes. So White and Magennis out, actually, that does raise... Yeah, good point. I hadn't considered that.
In so many ways, that would mean that the team, particularly in those attacking option, picks itself. You would expect, Wilkes to be there. Ken Lewis-Potter would come in for the start. And
Eves probably.
And probably Eves. And so it's, again, like, not an unhealthy problem to have with someone like Eves, who, he's been out of favour and he's chomping at the bit. And I guess there's been so many things that Tom Eves has done in those snapshot or short bursts that he's had that have frustrated City fans and on so many ways ruined his chances of pushing his way back into the squad. But you think about, from his perspective, it would be, possibly the biggest opportunity for him to fight his way back into the squad if he's going to, be a part of this picture on the run home. So in so many ways, I really love the way that White and Magennis are playing, and they've been informed. But if Tom Eaves gets his opportunity, I'm certainly not game enough to write him off just yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, it's a funny one being in League One. It had completely slipped my mind that it was the international break for our players. Because obviously, I mean, I know there were international games this morning, but just having a City game on the weekend, it is one of the few nice things about being in League One, I guess, as opposed to the Championship, is we don't have international breaks. We get City every week. But as one of the bigger clubs in League One, we're probably one of the few. Sunderland, maybe another one. I don't know if there's many. I don't know. I wouldn't have thought there's many other sides at all in the division with players going off for internationals. So it's an interesting factor to deal with, and it's a great point that obviously that means that our forward line will change around a little bit. Big opportunity for Eaves. Look, if he can score a couple of goals on the weekend and really sort of, it would be sort of like that the game against Ipswich under Bruce, where his name's gone out of my head now.
The header to is
Proschwitz getting the double against Ipswich for the
goal.
For
and who can forget the famous goal that
against Cardiff on the final day.
Against Cardiff, of course. How we forgot his name is special.
But it'd be something similar if for all the malignment that Eaves gets, if he was to come up on the weekend and get a couple of goals to get us the win and really sort of cement that the automatic spots places for us, it would be, and it's sort of ironic that I've forgotten Proschwitz's name in saying that, because it is the sort of thing that you're remembered for eternity. So look, he got that chance.
And furthermore, he's playing against his old club in Gillingham, which makes it
great point.
Even more,
because he missed the first one, didn't he? He missed the first one with injury. Yeah.
So it makes it even more of a intriguing fixture. So I think that even just having reminded ourselves of that prior to the fixture on Saturday, I think it's going to be an even bigger prospect of, I guess in the context of our season, it's going to be an even bigger game than we perhaps initially realized. So I've just become maybe 10 times more excited for this.
I think it's Robbie McKenzie's potentially first game back against us, because I don't think he played in that first game either. I had a look. I think he came off the bench for them in their last game, so he might not start this game, but chances are that he'll come on the field at some point. So big game for him as well. So there's a few reunions for players, and I think Alfie Jones as well might have played for Gillingham on loan, because I think the other week when I was looking up Gillingham tweets when they'd beaten Lincoln, and I saw that Alfie Jones had liked a few of the tweets and Eaves had liked a few of the tweets as well. So I think there's going to be a few reunions in this one as well. So it'll be a feisty game, a lot on the line for both sides. So it should actually be quite an exciting game. I think it's a big chance for Eaves. If he can bag a goal or two, he'll be very much a cult hero for City in that one. And then, of course, really big games around the league for us as well. Big games with lots riding on it for us around the league as well, with Sunderland playing Bristol Rovers, Lincoln playing Oxford, and Peterborough have Accrington Stanley as well. So 3 big games. I think Sunderland probably the easiest fixture of those 3, if I'm sort of being honest, looking at those 3. But Peterborough and Lincoln playing quite difficult opponents there. So chances for more drop points for rivals in those games. And look, if the perfect scenario was to eventuate and Sunderland were to lose to Rovers, we're flying, we're laughing. It'd be a great result.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just looking at the other teams around us in their run homes, it really does kind of speak into the fact that I do believe that we have the easiest run home, if I'm allowed to say that. You look down at the Sunderland fixtures ahead, and as you mentioned, the problem that Blackpool seem to be causing a lot of teams, they have to travel to Blackpool and they play them at home as well. So they've got to play them twice. They play Oxford, they play Peterborough, they play Charlton. There is some incredibly, they play us as well. I guess that's you can look at that one of 2 ways, but there's some incredibly tough fixtures on the Sunderland run home, and we've only have to look at the posh fixture against Rochdale, and they still have to play Doncaster twice. They play Lincoln. They also play Sunderland. There is some incredibly interesting fixtures around us as well. And I think it's that time of season where it's exciting, because not only do our fixtures matter, but particularly those ones become all the more important. And so, you end up finding yourself, keeping an eye on 3 or 4 games every round because of the context and the magnitude that it does have.
Look, it was great midweek. No City game, but being able to wake up at about 7 a.m. To the 70th minute of the posh Blackpool game to see Blackpool up 3-1 and just loving it. City not playing, but actually finishing the morning better off for that result is always a great position to be in. I think Blackpool still play Sunderland twice. In fact, I don't think they've played Sunderland yet. So that's 2 big clashes for Sunderland in that one. And of course, as we keep saying, Sunderland and Lincoln both playing us in the run-in. So from our point of view, it's just about we don't even have to better those sides around us anymore other than Sunderland. It's just about keeping pace with them. So as much as we can look at that Shrewsbury result with frustration, as we were saying earlier in the episode, it's actually not the worst result because of the results that came elsewhere. We're 1 game closer to the end of the season now and still in first place. So it's just about maintaining this pace. And then when we play those Sunderland and Lincoln games, those are the big games. If we can get the results in those games, it basically would seal things for us. So it is a bit typical City to falter in those games. And that's where we've just got to be really focused and get the results.
And I guess you've touched on it already, but the magnitude of that Peterborough and Blackpool game, and the fact that Peterborough were upset, having a superior goal difference, it actually does put it back in our hands. And I think that's probably, as we've always said on this podcast, that we believe in the points on the board is far more crucial than fixtures at hand. But the fact that they dropped those points midweek it now shows that we do have that clear 3-point lead, regardless of if they were to win their fixture, and that's a significant thing. And I know that certainly would play into the mentality of the City players as well, knowing that it is largely in our hands, and that's an incredibly positive situation to find yourself in.
And look, and we keep saying it as well. Our expectations have grown over the course of the season. We are now in a position that we are expecting an automatic promotion an automatic promotion spot. Coming into the season, we were very much of the mindset of, well, we should be getting promoted, but much more likely to be sort of mid-table, upper half of the table. So the fact that our expectations have grown over the season, whilst reasonable, does show the job that McCann and the squad have done, that they have turned City supporters around, their mentality around, from an off-season where we'd had such an awful finish to the championship season to really now being, I'd be disappointed if we didn't win the title. And I feel a bit ridiculous saying that, but that's sort of the position we find ourselves in now. We haven't won a league title since the 60s. So it'd be fantastic if we could do that this season. And I think there was actually an article in the Hull Daily Mail, or one of the reporters was tweeting about it today, that there is this chance for the players to do something quite historic for the club. And I think that really should be the focus. We shouldn't be sort of easing off now that we've got that gap on Peterborough. We need to be going full throttle and really trying to finish off the season quite strongly.
Yeah. And if we're to be honest with ourselves as well, with the expectations of McCann, I think it's probably a little bit premature to issue a report card, although I do look forward to our time of giving McCann his grade. And I think that we'll be able to do that in a few weeks' time. But let's not forget, we had a very, very stuttering December and January, where we did have a very tough run of results, and straight away the pessimism seemed to creep straight back in. But the recovery since then has been truly magnificent. And I think once the KLP contract saga kind of got sorted, we haven't really missed the trick. I mean, you can always be perfect, but the biggest problem City have had this year is losing to those teams down the bottom. It's those kind of banana skin games against the teams that we're expected to beat. And if you take those fixtures out of it, then we are well and truly the best team in this division. And I know that it is not a common phrase to use when we talk about City being the best team in a division, but I do feel that way. And I think that when we've talked about our depth in the squad as well, it speaks into that we're losing 2 of our marquee attacking players to international duty this week, and we still probably have the most competent front 3 in the division, and that has to count for something.
Yeah, and look, we sort of talked, Dan and I talked a little bit last week about that attitude towards McCann, and while I don't necessarily think it's entirely unjustified just because of how poor last season was, I do feel sorry for him in the sense that, as you quite rightly say, that it only takes the smallest sort of slip in form for the haters to be out in force very quickly. And look, and I'm guilty of that as well. I think he made a comment, sort of starting to creep in doubt that, if we don't go up this season, we can, regroup and go again next season. And I was really frustrated to see that from him, because I just don't think now's the time to be even suggesting or putting that out there into the players' minds and the supporters' minds. But I think if we can get promoted, automatic promotion places, it goes a long way to it. And then, as Dan was saying last week, I think, first 10, 15 games of next season, we see where we land in the championship. If we can sort of push on mid-table, upper half, I think that would go a long way to rehabilitating his image. But I think, the jury's still out, in the sense that I don't think there's anything he can achieve this season that would conclusively win back those fans. But look, I understand it on one level, but then, as you're saying as well, I feel sorry for him when we have played so well. I think it's almost an unconscious thing with some fans that as soon as there's any dip in form, there is going to be that doubt that creeps back in.
Yeah, and certainly, we've talked at length about this over the years. Is what's it like to actually work under the bosses and the guys of the Allen family? Like, it has obviously broken a few managers, and you look at the Nigel Atkins appointment in recent weeks, and you think about Steve Bruce leaving, you think about Marco Silva. There's so many that have fallen through the cracks, and so just looking at that on face value is, maybe we're not aware of the true job that McCann is doing behind the scenes, and perhaps some of the decisions that he makes and the things that he says in the comments in the media. Maybe there is a very obscure method in the madness, and that, as you said, that's maybe that won't be something that comes to light soon. And I do think that the City fans do have a genuine case to jump on his back when things go pear-shaped, because not everything about his reign at the helm in charge of City has been a positive time. That relegation was one of the most unfortunate relegations that I guess that many championship clubs have ever seen. I know it was the talk in England about when they showed the comparisons of the mid-season tables to the end-of-season table, and just how horrific it was that we ended up going down. But credit where credit's due. It's you can't fault him at this stage. From to be top of the league with 9 games to go, I think he's done a marvelous job, and we'll reserve judgment. And I do look forward to reviewing him. I think that it'll be a controversial topic, and one with many great discussion points. But look, he's put us in this position, and along with the playing group, and it's going to be a very exciting run in, and we do have him to thank for it.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we're here next week talking about still being top of the table with 8 games to go, and we're just sort of inching that step closer to returning to the championship. But until next week, thanks for joining me this week, Logan.
My pleasure.
No worries. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. I noticed, I think at one point we did have quite a few viewers watching along, so that was really appreciated. So it's always great to get some live viewers watching these episodes as well. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and anyone catching us on a replay as well, always appreciated as well. So until next week, come on City.